Good day all, RobotnikHolmes here, and if you'll let me be frank for a moment, I'm sure this one really needs no introduction. In today's video, I'm taking a look at these two old issues from the Sonic comics under the publication of Archie comics. They're not very interesting, hence why I'm kind of skipping over the whole intro. But you can thank the main writer for that. This fricking pillock. Yeah, I'm sad to say that the guy who wrote these two issues, the two I'm gonna have to dedicate a whole video to, was none other than Ken Penders. Why must fate be so cruel? I might be paraphrasing a little, but apparently Archie Comics sat down with all the writers, all four of them, and thought that out of all of them, from the slapstick-centric Gallagher to the actually pretty decent Stichisari, or even the duo, Penders and Kantarovich, they decided to appoint Penders, on his own, the guy whose stories weren't even that good when he was co-writing with someone, and make him write the main story. Archie Comics, were you high? And then, after that, issues number 27 and 28 came out. And, well, their plotlines kinda sucked balls. Like, 1 second. Yeah, come look at this cover for me and take a look at all the characters, just for a little bit. Now you know what happens. Yeah, this was to be expected. Heroes developing amnesia and working with the villain isn't exactly an original trope. Heck, it's not even new to the Sonic Sat AM cartoon. The Season 2 episode, No Brainer, had what was essentially the exact same plot. Terrifying diluted Sonic eyes notwithstanding. But yeah, these issues are gonna suck. But there's got to be something to salvage from this mess, right? That's kind of the reason I made this channel. To look at comics based off of video games and share any really cool stuff I find. Alright, enough talk, let's get into this thing. Buckle up, ladies and gentlemen, and everyone in between. And today, I'm going to be analysing issues 27 and 28. Wowza, the cover here is actually pretty good. I'm impressed at how totally different it looks, even when compared to the other simpler issues that came before it. It was also penned by Penders himself, which is surprising to say the least. Look at that little bit of text down there. I will pencil the cover. And I will ink your pencils. That's honestly kind of endearing. But enough of that now, let's get into this actual story. A scrambled hedgehog begins not with any of our familiar cast, but rather a pair of delinquents. Well, they seem to be delinquents, but they're actually spray painting codes for the heroes to find. I guess they're like double agents or something. So that leaves them ambiguously good, if anything. Also, their names are... Kicks a lot and Sleuth Doggy Dog. What the hell are these names? So, Sonic's just running around the villain's territory, doing his fast, speedy thing, when suddenly he spots the secret message on the wall. He's probably wondering who exactly is shipping him with Sally. I know I'd be suspicious. But then, he's suddenly caught, and I guess he's being punished for standing still for a second. Serves him right for looking at graffiti in Robotnik City. Our hero continues to be a fast boy, running down the desolate, empty streets of Robotropolis, and avoiding swarms of SWATbots, when BAM! He bumps right into one. From the speed he was going at, you'd think he'd just send the robot flying, but apparently not. This guy was just that hard. And so, when Sonic awakens, the Hedgehog finds himself held captive by none other than the villain himself. Yep, it would seem that Sonic has gotten himself a case of the amnesias. And like, wow, he's this close to being roboticized by Snively and Robotnik here. And Snively seems to think that the Hedgehog is faking his appropriately timed forgetfulness. But the crafty old Robotnik decides to hold off finally eliminating his nemesis for something much more immoral. The villain goes ahead and coaxes Sonic into thinking that he's his humble mentor figure, and that he just happened to conk his head. So he caringly adjusts his fricking restraint straps before wandering off. Jeez, this guy has some big plans ahead, I can tell you. Later on, Dr. Robotnik proceeds to train our amnesiac hero in the arts of beating up your friends, and it looks like it's going dangerously well. Also, these guys aren't the real deal, clearly, but rather robotic copies built to be beaten up.
Delightfully devilish. Doctor!
Huh, You'd think that blink and you'll miss it appearance in the Princess Sally miniseries was alluding to this. Anyway, Sonic the Hedgehog has beaten up the copies of the Freedom Fighters and made Robotnik proud. Time to fight the real thing, huh? Robotnik even lies about the Freedom Fighters' motives, telling the Hedgehog that the evil Princess Sally leads a band of cutthroats who want to overthrow the government. Jesus Christ, you absolute fibber! That's what you did! That's the methods you took to take over Mobius, but of course, it wouldn't be an amnesia-themed story beat if the hero didn't just straight up believe him. So, Sonic runs off into the Great Forest and searches for this secret village of Knothole. All the while, the bad guys observe the hero through a tracking device and watch how it goes out from the comforts of their own city. Oh crap, it looks like Robotnik's real plan is not necessarily to have Sonic fight his friends, but to locate Knothole for him so that he can muck it up with his vehicles of destruction. Man, I love it when Dr. Robotnik's plans are just so evil that you forget how bumbling he usually is. Though Robotnik's eyes unexpectedly turn all black here for some reason, and I find it distracting. Anyway, back on track. Sonic finds the secret entrance to Knothole for Robotnik, and we see it as a hidden stairway carved into a log. Wait, no, that's not how it's supposed to go. It's meant to be that twisty pipe of whimsical proportions. I know the story is meant to be serious, and it would probably clash with the rest of it, but come now, that thing's iconic. Anyway, Sonic's making his way into the secret underground corridors, and meanwhile, Rotor and Sally hear of his arrival. But something appears to be off. Rotor's various sensors indicate that there's some sort of device on the person. A tracking device? We can't have that, can we? So Sonic's path is blocked by emergency gates, and he's in a pretty awkward place right now. But thankfully, Dr. Robotnik contacts him and instructs the dude to point his fist towards the metal doors. And bam! Hand laser. So, Sonic's now considered armed and dangerous, the outcome being that Sally orders for all the defences to activate so that their former friend does not reach them. How do you guys know exactly that he's now evil? As far as you're concerned, he has a device that was left on him and he can break through metal, which I'm pretty sure he could already do. Maybe you guys are just dicks. Man, I don't remember Knothole's underground caverns being this sodding spacious, but whatever. Sonic goes down one of the underground passages, only to be met by water. However, this is exactly the kind of situation our villain had been waiting for. He'd rather have Sonic eliminated, I guess, so he coordinates with his demolition vehicles while Sonic's running for his life from the rushing water. And then Sonic finds himself caught between a rock in a bloody wet place. But rocks are no inconvenience to Sonic, and in a split second of thought, he quickly decides that the best course of action for a speedy blue hedgehog to take is to burrow into the rocks and escape the water. In the process, he has the water chase after him, as gravity would have it. But there is a funny moment when Dr. Robotnik ironically finds himself hoping that the hedgehog gets out of there alive. Didn't you just want to have him killed in the water pipes? What's your motivation, you bigot? So, Sonic makes it out alive and back into the Great Forest. And then, pretty soon, he stumbles upon Knothole Village. Finally. What was all that running around in the pipes for? We see the village residents, led by Antoine, preparing a barricade to try and stop Sonic in his tracks. They're pretty startled to realise that it's Sonic who's attacking them, but come on, wood and sandbags? Are you having a laugh? Yeah, you have a right to think that that doesn't seem right, because Sonic clearly is not in the mood to stop right now. And so, the story ends with Sonic finally reaching HQ, and Rotor and Princess Sally meet the ominous amnesic hedgehog in the shadows. All the while he starts singing a rendition of Bad Boys. And yeah, that's the end of the issue. Well, that was definitely an amnesic hero plot. I kinda see why it's split into 2 issues now. They decided to cram a lot of action and kind of pointless detours in this one. Well, that's kind of what I came to expect, but I'll start off with the positives first. A bit of trivia here, but both the story and the cover for this issue were clearly inspired by Amazing Spider-Man issue number 56. What with the covers looking similar and having the hero be on the villain's side. I guess Penders loved making direct homages to things even back then, eh? The characters, as dull as they were written, had roles in the story that I'm glad they excelled at. In this comic, you don't often see Rotor do anything except look at a TV screen, and he kinda does the same here, but I'm glad we got to see Sally in a leadership role, and Dr. Robotnik was portrayed less goofy and more serious in destroying his nemesis and his entire team as well. I swear, at this point, Penders is the only one who writes Dr. Robotnik properly. None of this stupid, loud, annoying stuff with his stupid ass laugh. Yeah, I'm looking at you, Gallagher. You write villains terribly. If you watched the cartoon, you'd know he'd have his moments of light comedy now and then, especially in Season 2, but when it came down to it, he was always this fricking malicious dictator whose plans were never anything to scoff at. I'm glad this issue continues to capture that maliciousness in his character. Okay, let me get to the not so good stuff. I gave Gallagher crap for all of his pop culture references, but Penders here implemented way too many in this, and way too many ones that made me wince. In the first freaking page, we had a pair of minor characters named after popular hip-hop artists at the time. And some of the things that Sonic says throughout the issue reminded me that a middle-aged man was the one writing his dialogue. And the alarmingly blatant Bad Boys reference at the end. What the hell was up with all that? I know it's in Sonic's character to be hip and cool, but I doubt he very much listened to Bob Marley in my honest opinion. And speaking of characters, I gave the writing credit for depicting Sally in a leadership role for once, but why was she so adamant in keeping Sonic away from them and being locked in a tunnel? And even going so far as to say that he was no longer their friend. You don't know if he's being brainwashed. What were you going by to come to that conclusion? That he had a device on his head? Were you being brainwashed? By the writer? But yeah, the story and characters had a little bit I liked about them, but it wasn't enough for me to overlook the detours in both the story and the way the cast was written in this issue. So I'm gonna have to give the story and characters a score of 2. The art was done by Mawini. His stuff always fits with the style, he was the storyboard artist for the cartoon after all. As much as I dislike that a large chunk of the narrative took place in drab underground tunnels, at least the action wasn't bad, and I suppose I have Art Mawini to thank for that. The way he drew characters was fine, but most of their expressions, as per usual, were mostly stilted and had little to no change in how they looked in each panel. The only guy I think had a good range of expressions for this visual medium of a comic book was Dr. Robotnik, and, well, that's good. If the main villain of the story looked bland, I'd probably think the whole issue would have been bland, or blander. Sadly though, I can't find much else I liked, visuals wise. The backgrounds were surprisingly flat looking, and there wasn't much change in scenery throughout. Yeah, I didn't much care for that. So, competent but bland looking. That's probably how I'd rate most of this era of the comics. The art for this issue, in my opinion, also just gets a 2. Bet you weren't expecting this, did you? Yeah, I'm putting this in the extra bit section because you know how the cover teased a preview for Sonic Triple Trouble? Well, it's true, to an extent. Gallagher went and made 2 pages of loosely accurate panels. I guess to tease the upcoming single issue special, which I actually reviewed already on this channel if you'd like to check that out. There's a couple jokes here that don't fit with the story advertised, but they're nonetheless funny gags. Well, mostly funny. I'm still not on board with this one. I guess free advertising didn't hurt. So, final score for issue number 27, a scrambled hedgehog gets a 4 out of 10. Yup, below average I'm afraid. But this is a 2-parter, and I'd rather not waste more time than the writers did making this creatively bankrupt plot. So let's move on to the next one. On the cover for issue number 28, we have the villain egging Sonic on, the latter of whom is standing over the heavily bruised corpses of his former friends. Okay, it's not exactly that gruesome, but that's the mood they're trying to make, I think. Even Bunny, though? She's a freaking powerful cyborg. She can freaking remove trees from the ground, she's so strong. You're telling me she's beaten up too? Oh well, I'm ready for this. Either way, we'll have to see how that goes later, because right now, in Saturday Night's Alright for a Fight, what the hell's that a reference to? The brainwashed hedgehog makes a mildly threatening stance towards Sally and Rota. Sally tries to play it cool, while Rota is just silent. And I guess that'll show him. Jesus Christ, I underestimate how bad it would be if Sonic was to be on the wrong side. He just beats the crap out of Rota until he's freaking unconscious. He seems to go easy on Sally though. Well, kinda. He just tries to suffocate her in a headlock, but thankfully, Sally proves to still be a badass when it comes to hand-to-hand combat. Hell yeah. Then Bunny and Tails come into the scene, and it all starts to play up like a freaking video game-esque brawl. Bunny also proves to be a capable fighter, particularly in her strength as a half-robot. She even decides to give Sonic some TLC, which is to say tight leg crush. And Tails is also there to help. Well, he's not much of a fighter either way, but sadly it would seem that Sonic's speed and strength exceeds even their power in numbers, and he sends them all flying, while also looking like Crash Bandicoot as he does a spin. Not even Tails is safe though, and while he's able to fly away before he can be knocked unconscious, Sonic just jumps up and beans the kid with his freaking spin attack. This leaves more than half of the Freedom Fighters left knocked out on the floor of their own headquarters. It would seem that the Freedom Fighters have finally been bested. But back with Dr. Robotnik and Snively, they plan accordingly, as after all, Sonic's kind of found the secret location of Knothole for them. But you see, they need his exact coordinates to send their demolition trucks. So all they need of Sonic is to make him return back to Robotropolis so that they can track his return. That would be simple for Sonic to do and let the bad guy win, but you and I both know that these stories are anything but simple. Because our sort of hero suddenly finds himself ambushed back in Knothole after someone turns the lights off. But who by? Well, the substitute Freedom Fighters, funnily enough, all led by Antoine. These rookies don't stand a chance against Sonic, even with all this dramatic lighting to try and visually up the stakes. In the end, it all comes down to a showdown between Sonic and Antoine, and you know he means business when he fights with a freaking sword. You think he's finally getting revenge on the Hedgehog in a way, you know, due to how he always used to bully him in every issue. So Antoine is bested too as Sonic monologues some dumb dialogue, and he seems to have cleared the room of opponents, but then the surprise appearance of the last guy actually proves to knock him out cold. Man, I sure wasn't expecting whoever this guy is. Who is he? Oh yes, Dylan Porcupine. Thankfully, when Sonic comes to, in the care of Sally and Rota, it seems that after the fight he got knocked out in, he has suddenly recovered his memories. I'm more surprised that these guys didn't end up in hospital too, considering the crap Sonic put them through when he slammed them against metal. Thank God Rota's finally discovered where the tracking device was, so that he can remove it from Sonic's ear. What was it, a tracking piercing? I guess the Hedgehog wishes to repay the good doctor for doing him such a disservice, and so he rushes off to get revenge for threatening the lives of his friends. He's not doing it alone, is he? Well, that's Sonic for you. He doesn't know that by going back to Robotropolis, he's also giving away his position in the Great Forest, allowing the villain to send his tanks over towards Knothole. Tails even relays this back to Freedom HQ. I never imagined him having a scouter role in the team. I guess now I know what his TF2 class would be. However, Sonic has apparently outsmarted Robotnik, because he instead made the villain send his forces to, well, not Knothole, but rather right off the edge of a cliff. Yeah, bet you weren't expecting that, were you? So, yeah, that's his plans of this issue foiled. The heroes end up forgiving Sonic for beating them up, and decide to trick Robotnik so that he doesn't know the proper location of their HQ. And the main story ends with a mildly irritated Dr. Robotnik, and one more corny joke. God, Snively, you're meant to be a smartass behind your boss's back. Why don't you properly grill him, you coward? Story 2, Growing Pains. Oh my god, what? It has Tails run away from home because of Sonic's previous beating up his friend shtick? This and Tails' intense dislike on being looked down upon actually made him storm out and leave Sonic. Fittingly enough, Tails decides to leave in his Sea Fox sub, which is consistent, I suppose. I'm glad he still has it on him. It's still weird how he was able to refuel it by taking the oil off a seagull. Yeah, thanks for bringing that up again, comic. It's not like I was ready to be perplexed a second time. However, unbeckons to the two-tailed kid, Dr. Robotnik is apparently spying on him through one of his many secret cameras. Also, he's apparently going to be putting those auto-automatons to work again. You know, the things that look like other people, but they're really robots. But in what way? Anyway, Tails makes it to this random island on his sub, when suddenly there's a call for help. Immediately the dude bursts out and hopes to free the person in distress, and prove to everyone that he's an independent hero who needs no freedom fighter team. But alas, his young, simple mind comes across something that leaves him stunned. Tails meets this young female fox tied up on the beach. Apparently her name is Fiona, and as you can tell, Tails is pretty much smitten over her. And immediately after being rescued, the two really start to hit it off. What proceeds in this sickeningly romantic tale is the two apparently falling in love and going through the stages of romance. But wait, we're not even done there. There's this page-long montage of the two going about the island and having a romantic time together. It's all played for comedy, presumably, and there's a lot of lovey-dovey visual gags here. God damn, Tails, you're like 8. How are you getting more success than me? Ugh, yeah, I'm with you on that, Robotnik. I just want to get a move on past this sodding montage. So it would seem that Fiona is part of the trap set for Tails, which would definitely mean bad news for him, but hold on a sec. Can we just appreciate this panel for a moment? This is legit funny, both on a humour level and on how comical it looks. So, it would seem that Tails has been trapped by the bad guy in a cage, as it was all part of the dude's plan, and oh no, say it ain't so, his lovely Fiona was a robot all along? Tails was played like a bloody fiddle. God damn, and you can see with this handy overview that he's about to be roboticized by the island, which appears to be completely mechanical. Uh-huh. Well, are we going to follow that up with anything? Nope. Cliffhanger. Because why not? You gotta make us wait a whole month just to see if Tails hasn't fricking died? Or rather, turned into a robot? Why'd they have to cut it from here? Well, that was some part 2, huh? Yeah, I'm not gonna lie, that was a tad underwhelming. At least when compared to all the different varieties of scenarios we saw in the previous issue. I kind of enjoyed the Sonic vs. Freedom Fighters battle. Or at least the first part. I'm glad both Sally and Bunny got to remind us that, yeah, these two can kick ass. I think the comics have shown that a grand total of 1 time already, not counting the entire Princess Sally miniseries. But I didn't understand why the substitute freedom fighters were given more levity, what with their scenes being given a grim-lit colour scheme to showcase just how epic the fight is. Interpersonal conflict. But Antoine aside, why were these randos given more focus? Wouldn't it have made more sense if the substitute freedom fighters were to take on Sonic first, instead of being the second wave and given all this serious stuff? Sure, it would interrupt the flow of the story, but it would at least have made their inclusion less of a waste. The story was meant to be about Sonic fighting the other freedom fighters. Make it about that, pen kenders. In terms of character, one other thing I liked was Snively's personality from the cartoon, slowly crawling into his comic self. Finally, we see bits of Snively's snarky personality towards his boss. That was kind of missing in previous stories, where he was just essentially the Tails to Robotnik's Sonic. Just a guy who hangs around him and parrots back dialogue, which made him the same as Crabmeat. And speaking of dialogue, the character's writing was very dumb. You can make a good conflict and have heroes going into brawls with their former friends, but if you give them dialogue like this, in my opinion, it just takes away some of the fun. I guess that's just what Ken Penders does in these comic books, make them really like comic books. The other story, revolving around Tails meeting his love interest, was kind of paint by numbers too. If you've seen one story where a character meets a female counterpart of themselves and then has a falling in love montage, you've seen them all. Get this tropey heterosexual stuff out of my face. Also, let's be honest, Love-Struck Tails isn't nearly as good as Blushy Tails. I know I'd rather see this cutie instead of this fricking, look at me, I'm in love. The only good thing about that story was that one joke that Gallagher made that actually got a chuckle out of me. But even that's not enough to save this issue, I'm afraid. The only thing worse than a bad story is one that's boring as heck, and I'm afraid that's what I thought of these ones. So I'm giving the story a score of 1. The art was on the same level as the previous issue. The fight scenes could have looked better, but I'll compliment Mawini on giving us some decent looking panels. There was a lot of these whooshing effects though, which makes sense, I've got to go fast and all. I'll also compliment the look of the fight in the dark, as much crap as I give its inclusion. Honestly, I kinda just preferred the art for the second story. At least it was more memorable in just how crazy the visuals got. Yeah, Manak did a good job, regardless of the overuse of romanticness. So yeah, visuals and art were kind of the same, so it's only fair that I give it the same score. So, 2. Final score for Sonic the Hedgehog number 28 is a 3 out of 10. Well, I suppose I was kind of correct in my assumption. These 2 issues weren't that great. I suppose because of all the typical tropes they used, from the love at first sight for the Tails story, and the already overused hero being hypnotized by the villain to think he's a good guy routine of the first. Freaking Robotnik did the same thing with Knuckles, like 10 issues ago, so why would you even reuse such a cliched plot point, Penders? If we're going to do that, at least give it something to stand out, you know? And that was that video. Dear God, please tell me the next 2 are actually going to be something good. Oh, crap. Princess Sally gets sodding roboticized, and Uncle Chuck returns. Oh wow, looks like in the next video we're going to have some other important characters in the spotlight. Can't wait to see how that goes. So yeah, next video shall be about issues number 29 and 30. You have my thanks for watching this video, and I'll see you soon.